What's up, Internet? It's Taylor, and this is my vlog. Doing this really quick today because this is kind of a huge, fast, quick new development that just kind of came up, and I wanted to get my word out pretty quickly. So that's why the formatting's a little bit different. I'm going to do album reviews today like I do most Tuesdays, but I'm going to split them up into separate videos for the sake of time, and also because I want to talk about them a little more in depth. And particularly I want to talk about this one more in depth. So I'm going to talk right now about Muse, the new Muse album, The Second Law. The album isn't actually out yet, but it leaked last night, and so Muse put it up for a free stream on iTunes, which is pretty fantastic. So we can listen to it before we actually go out and buy it, if we go out and buy it, which was really a point of contention for me. I didn't order the album or anything like that, because the singles were really weak. And everybody was like freaking out because they were like, oh, Muse is going dubstep, this is going to be horrible. And I was right there with them. I was posting on everybody that I knew that liked Muse's wall, and I was like, hey, you know, the new Muse record, you don't want to buy it yet, you want to hear it first because it sounds like it's going to be a dubstep album. And it did. If you heard Unsustainable, which was the first single, we'll get back to that in a minute, it was a dubstep song. And then you got Madness, which was the second single that was kind of a quasi-ballad, but it was very electronic and very dancey, and I didn't really know what to do with it. And then they finally put up this full album stream, and it makes sense. And I'm going to get into that, but it's very different, but it makes sense. So, we'll start by saying that this is a really adventurous record for Muse. You know, everybody says that Muse is such an adventurous band, and they are. But this one goes a little bit too far, in my opinion. So it feels like a Muse record right off the bat. The first track, Supremacy, is awesome. You've got these huge guitars, this big Zeppelin-y riff, lots of synthesizers, lots of big Matt Bellamy vocals with the falsetto trills and all that stuff. And it's very fun. And then when you get about 6 songs in, it suddenly shifts gears on you. Now, Muse is known to hop genres every once in a while, but this is something entirely different. 6 songs in, this whole album just changes, and I don't even know what it turns into. So Muse is known to put a couple of quasi-ballads on each album, things like Starlight and stuff like that, and those are really cool, I really dig those songs, but then they always have one really down-tempo ballad that I never like. I don't think these guys are good at writing ballads, and I think they're really kind of obnoxious. And that is absolutely the case with Explorers on the new album. It's very ballady, it's got lots of keyboard, and no, I don't like it very much. And I was like, okay, well maybe this will just be the one-off ballad for the album. But then the next track is just the exact same way. Big Freeze is a little more up-tempo than Explorers, but it's still got this just weird, like, Matt Bellamy trying to sing a ballad feel that I'm not really into. And that kind of continues through the whole latter half of the album, until you get into the songs that Chris Wolstenholme wrote. And this is a huge first for Muse. Matt Bellamy almost exclusively writes the songs, but Chris Wolstenholme wrote 2 songs on the new album, and they're both about his struggle with alcoholism, which is really deep and intense for him, because he's never written anything before of this magnitude, and so to write so personally on his first 2 songs is really cool. However, the songs are kinda eh. The first song, Save Me, is another weird ballad thing. I'm not a fan of it at all. I think it's better than Explorers, but it's still kinda eh. However, Liquid State, the second song that he wrote, is actually really cool. I think it's going to be a lot of fun live, because it's got some big chorusy parts to it, and it's also just kind of a cool, like, look at the lasers type of song, because, you know, Muse has to have those look at the lasers type songs, because they're a laser rock band. So you can definitely tell that Matt is the stronger songwriter on this album. His tracks are a lot more solid than Chris's, but I think Chris does a really good job for being so new to full songwriting as he is, and I think his songs are definitely worth the listen, and they definitely deserve the spot on the album. And then we get into The Second Law. The last 2 tracks on the album are like a mini-suite, similar to the Exogenesis symphony thing that was on the previous album, Resistance. Except here it's 2 songs long, which is kind of nice because the other one got really long and pompous. But these 2 songs, man, they're out there. The first song is Unsustainable, which we heard in the single, and I really hated Unsustainable when it came out as a single. I watched the video and it just made me so mad because it was so cheesy and it just didn't feel like Muse. But when I listen to it on the album, it still feels weird, but I think it is okay. And then that flows right into this second track of the suite, which is called Isolated System. And Isolated System is a lot more freeform. It doesn't really have a verse-chorus-verse format, or really any kind of format at all. There's lots of sampled vocals again from that weird fake newscast thing that they used on Unsustainable. And there's lots of keyboards, and it feels like a typical Muse instrumental with this kind of unsustainable aspect thrown into it. And it really caps off the album nicely, but I still feel kind of like this could have been an EP. Like, we could have taken Unsustainable, this song, and maybe one more and made it an EP instead of tacking it onto the end of this otherwise okay album. But it really just kind of makes the second half of this album even more mediocre than it already is. As mediocre as the second half is, though, the first half is really awesome. Supremacy is great. Survival, we've already heard, but it's fantastic. And then there's Panic Station, which I just can't stand. It's like Muse is trying to write a disco song or something. I don't know why this is here. I don't know why so many bands are trying to put weird disco-y rock songs into their albums right now, but it's a trend that really needs to stop. Panic Station is just kind of pitiful, honestly. I'm really disappointed that this ended up on the final album, and I'm really just gonna skip it every time. Follow Me is kind of on the borderline. I mean, it could be better, it could be worse, but it's a Muse song, and so I'll take it. But once again, once you get past like track 6, track 7, and you start getting into Explorers and all that stuff, I want to skip them. And really, I probably will. When I listen to this album, I'm probably just going to skip those tracks, because they just don't feel like they belong, and they feel really just boring and mediocre ballady type stuff. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about the second law. Overall, I think there's parts that are great, I think there's parts that are really mediocre. I think it's worth a listen on the stream, and if you really like it from the stream, go ahead and put money down or go out in a couple of weeks and buy it. But I'm on the fence, and I'm really glad that I didn't go out and spend money on it before I listened to it, because I'm still not sure that I'm actually going to buy it. So beware, take a listen. Let me know what you think in comments down below, because I'm still really not sold on this. Otherwise, check out the other reviews that I'm putting up today. I'm going to talk about Mumford & Sons' Babel. I'm going to talk about a couple other new albums that I just picked up. So let me know what you thought of this, and we'll continue this discussion down in comments. Other than that, I'll see you next time.